And the FDA flags a new warning for a rare but potentially serious side effect from the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine. Also, a suspect is dead following the shooting of 2 officers in Baltimore. The Missouri governor gives final approval to a gas tax hike in the state. This is KOAM News at Noon. I'm Zach Dodge. Governor Parson Monday night signed legislation that will increase the state gas tax from 17 cents per gallon to 29.5 cents per gallon over 5 years. The first 2.5 cent increase will take effect in October, bringing the tax to 19.5 cents. The money will be used for roads and bridges, with the State Department of Transportation estimating a current $745 million funding gap. Once fully implemented, the gas tax hike could generate more than $500 million annually. 2 Baltimore officers are shot while serving a warrant outside a mall Tuesday morning. It happened outside of Security Square Mall in Woodlawn as a U.S. Marshals task force served a warrant. The officers were taken to the University of Maryland Medical Center with injuries that are thought to not be life-threatening. Authorities say the suspect was killed. A Sarcoxy woman is hospitalized with serious injuries following a crash on I-44 yesterday. 25-year-old Akesia Root of Sarcoxy is hospitalized after being rear-ended by a semi on I-44 near Fidelity. According to the Missouri Highway Patrol, Root was slowing down for a MoDOT mower when 38-year-old Duke Tuttle, who was driving a semi-truck, hit her vehicle from behind, causing Root to hit the bridge rail. 1 person is dead and another seriously injured after hitting a deer while riding a motorcycle. It happened Sunday night 3 miles north of Reeds. 29-year-old Isaac Freeland and 26-year-old Taylor Bass were both ejected from the motorcycle after they hit a deer in the road. Bass died at the hospital. Now we're joined by Michael Hayslip with our first look at the forecast.
Zach, remember at this time yesterday, we were talking about that cloud cover. We were looking at that dark one over 7th and Range Line going, oh, when is it going to give us some rain?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what a difference this makes. Now, you just hang with me right here because I want a little bit of your input. Leave Zach's mic open for me if you will. Gorgeous shot outside of Television City, where temperatures right now range all the way from the low to mid 80s. We're rolling 85s out in southeast Kansas. Still waiting on Monette, who's at 79, and Joplin right now at 82. And a clear Skywatch storm tracker as all that cloud cover has moved off almost on the other side of the Mississippi River. Now, Zach, I want to harken back to the morning show. Remember we did the 24-hour temperature change where we had negative numbers?
Yeah.
It's 11 degrees warmer right now than what it was at this point in time yesterday. That just goes to show you what just a huge difference those clouds can make just in the span of one day. As a matter of fact, everybody ranging from 6 to 12 degrees hotter right now. I'm going to say hotter, not warmer. 6 degrees hotter at the noon hour than what we had yesterday. And remember, we really don't peak until about 4 or 5 p.m. So we're going to be rolling up anywhere from 88 to 90. Taste of July coming back at us, but we knew that was going to happen here as we got into the middle of the month. See a little green down there in the southern portion of northeast Oklahoma. Not a whole lot of it even able to make it into our counties, so don't let that dissuade any afternoon, evening plans that you have. Overnight, we're going to roll high 60s and mostly 70s, and then get ready for tomorrow, because if you think this Tuesday is hot, we got some humidity that's going to work in. Coming up here in just a little bit, Zach, we'll talk about the precipitable water moving in from the Gulf and why that's going to make such a difference between this afternoon and really what it's going to feel like tomorrow.
For sure. And at least we got a little bit of a break from the heat.
Nice little break.
Yeah, little break.
Not bad.
Couldn't expect it to last too long in July.
We should be sitting about 90, 91 every day this time of year. So yeah, we did. We got a break.
So yeah, that's been nice, but we'll check back in with you in a little bit.
I'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Michael. Federal health officials issue a new warning about Johnson & Johnson's single-dose coronavirus vaccine. Natalie Brand has why doctors say the benefits still outweigh the potential risks.
As the U.S. pushes to increase vaccination rates, a new warning from the FDA that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine may be linked to a very rare neurological disorder known as Guillain-Barré syndrome.
People with viral and bacterial infections can get an autoimmune reaction against the nerves in their body. And it happens occasionally with vaccines. It happens with flu vaccine, shingle vaccine, to very, very rare events.
The FDA says it has seen 100 preliminary reports of Guillain-Barré out of nearly 13 million people who received the one-dose J&J shot. 95 of those cases required hospitalization. One person died. Johnson & Johnson says the chance of having this occur is very low, and we strongly support raising awareness of the signs and symptoms of rare events.
We have the treatments for it. The key is to identify it early. And with this warning, we will do that.
The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines have not been found to have a similar risk for that complication, and doctors are still urging unvaccinated Americans to get their shots to protect against the fast-spreading Delta variant.
It is spreading more efficiently, that it is spreading in pockets that are unvaccinated, and it's causing a lot of disease and a lot of stress.
The largest increase is happening in some southern and western states.
Missouri, Arkansas, Nevada, Utah, Florida have seen more activity than other parts of the country.
CDC Deputy Director Jay Butler says more than 99% of all new cases are in people who are completely unvaccinated. Natalie Brandt, CBS News, Washington.
Health officials say all evidence shows the COVID-19 vaccine is effective even against the Delta variant. Now in southwest Missouri, the Springfield Greene County Health Department is hoping church leaders and employers will help boost vaccine numbers. Right now, 39% of eligible people in Greene County are vaccinated. The department joined James River Church and Central Assembly to get the message out. James River Church is hosting clinics all week at its various campuses, including in Joplin. That clinic will be Thursday, July 15th. The number of COVID-19 cases continues to increase in Missouri, and that's affecting Joplin hospitals as well. At Freeman Health System, they say their COVID numbers are reflective of what most Missouri hospitals are reporting. On Monday, Freeman Health System had 50 COVID-related hospitalizations, including at their Neosho Hospital. Mercy Hospital had 58. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, protests continue in Cuba as residents grow more angry about the worsening economic crisis on the island. And later, we'll turn a frozen drink into a treat you'll want to eat, even if it's not after 5. Topping World Watch today, President Biden is expressing support for demonstrators in Cuba after thousands of people took to the streets in one of the country's biggest protests in decades. This comes as the Biden administration reviews its policy toward the communist nation, including whether to ease or maintain economic sanctions. Manuel Bajorquez reports.
We call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence or attempts to silence the voice of the people of Cuba.
President Biden on Monday said the U.S. stood with Cuban protesters.
I don't think we've seen anything like this protest in a long, long time.
The comments came a day after thousands of Cubans poured into the streets, protesting against the communist government, triggered by food shortages, rising prices, and the government's response to rising COVID infections. Thousands in Miami have joined in solidarity. Havana-born Damir Perez came to Florida a decade ago and says he's optimistic the protests will fuel change.
We've been fighting this fight for a long time now. We have never seen it in 62 years of dictatorship in Cuba.
But in Havana, it was mostly quiet again by Monday. Police were seen patrolling the streets. Cuban authorities appear to have blocked access to social media sites like Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Dozens of people have been reportedly arrested in the protests, including journalists. Many demonstrators were also injured in clashes with police and pro-government activists. President Miguel Díaz-Canel blamed Cuba's economic turmoil on the U.S. trade embargo. The Biden administration pushed back on any notion the U.S. was responsible for the protests.
These are protests inspired by the harsh reality of everday life in Cuba, not people in another country.
One indication of the growing discontent in Cuba is the uptick in the number of migrants arriving here in Florida by boat, risking their lives despite no longer having an automatic legal pathway to remain in this country. Manuel Bojorquez, CBS News, Miami.
Still to come on KOAM News at Noon, Mr. Food.
Grab your flip-flops, a beach towel, and your appetite, because we're going to show you how to whip up a frozen dessert that's summertime perfect.
Looking good, Howard. But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
All things considered, especially what Zach was saying earlier, we kind of have been spoiled here at the beginning of July because we've been talking about the warm-up that begins in earnest today, up into the high 80s, if not 90, and tomorrow probably being our hottest day of the week. But I do want to point out on our daily almanac here for July the 13th, average high should be 90. So really, we're right on par. And I'll tell you what, this harkens back to when we were doing the noon news back in June. 1952, 1953, and 1954. 3 consecutive years where you could go back day after day after day, and they seemingly hold every daily record. 1954 got up to 113 degrees. 113. All of a sudden, 82 doesn't seem too bad. Now that humidity down to 58%, but that's going to have a drastic change here in the coming days. Even without the cloud cover, it's been a very, very nice morning. We're talking about 81 in Pittsburgh, 83 in Miami. Let's roll a pair of 81s in Fort Scott and Miami. And Monette still sitting at a very comfortable 79. Now, as we talked about earlier, remember, this is a double-digit increase for most of us here when compared to yesterday, and that's because of that lack of cloud cover, as it now has moved pretty much on the east side of the Mississippi, where they've got flooding concerns of their own through portions of Illinois and Indiana. Speaking of flooding concerns, we still have the flood warning right now. That's the Little Osage. Now, hey, we were talking this morning. Any chance we were able to lift the Osage River one? Yeah, we were. And so that means that that one's extended until 5:30, but at least we've only got 1 on the board instead of 2 on the board. Now, as this low pressure system moves off of the Ohio River Valley, you'll notice there's nothing off to the west of it. Great news for us, as you almost have this circular motion right here with what is trying to turn into a little cutoff low for the southwestern portion of the United States, and that's why they've had their fair amount of rain is all. But here's what I want to do. Check out the severe thunderstorm risk map. Now we're going to go back to the jet stream. That's a mid-level jet stream, and look at how that mimics one another. So the fact that we don't have any arrows coming through us means we're going to stay on the dry side, and even if you do pick up any raindrops down to the south, it won't amount to anything. Here's the difference overnight. What's happening is this is the old precipitable water map, all that Gulf moisture right there. You see the orange and the light blue? Well, simply put, that's humidity creeping into the upper atmosphere. And while ours remains purple for the time being, down to 58% that humidity was, here's what's making its way toward us. So eventually, it's going to result in thunderstorm activity. But before it does that, it's going to result in our hottest day of the work week. Look at this, overnight lows just kind of hanging in the 70s. So consider that we started early this morning in the low 60s, and we're going to make it up into the 80s. If we start tomorrow in the low 70s, where are we going to head? You guessed it, we're going to head up into the 90s tomorrow. But the key factor is, once again, that precipitable water we were talking about. Adds in that humidity. So Zach, tomorrow we're going to feel about like 96. Now eventually, you gather up so much of that humidity and water, it's got to go somewhere, right?
Right.
Thursday night. That's when we're looking at thunderstorm activity, scattered, not showing up on the severe thunderstorm risk map, but eventually those clouds are going to drop. When it does, there is no break from that July heat on the backside of it.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's going to be interesting for sure.
Little muggy Friday and Saturday.
Right, but thank you much, Michael. We take this time now to honor today's four-state hero. Staff Sergeant Robert Smart was a member of the United States Army. He served multiple tours of duty in Iraq from 1998 to 2004. His hometown, Independence, Kansas. We're proud to salute Robert Smart, a four-state hero. After a hard day at work, you may want to kick back and relax with a frozen margarita. But today, Howard has a great way to have your margarita and eat it too in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
If you've been on a cruise or to a tropical resort, then you've probably had your fair share of frozen margaritas. There's something about the combination of this frosty drink featuring the tangy lime and the salted rim that puts us in vacation mode.
Thank you.
Well, today we're making a strawberry version of this in the form of a pie. We start with the crust, which we make from crushed pretzels mixed with a bit of butter. This gets pressed into a pie plate and chilled until we're ready to fill it. As for the filling, all that is a can of sweetened condensed milk combined with frozen margarita mix concentrate and a few drops of red food coloring. After that's mixed, we add some whipped topping and a cup or so of sliced fresh strawberries. We give this a mix and spoon it into our crust, which is going to give our pie a touch of saltiness, just like a margarita. Then into the freezer it goes. Once it sets up, it's ready to serve. Maybe finish it with a few dollops of whipped cream and more berries. Then it's time to dig in. To get the recipe for this cool and tangy treat, all you have to do is visit our website and look for Frozen Margarita Pie. It's that easy. I'm Howard with Kelly in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a tempting tropical way for you to say, ooh, it's so good. Tropical?
You can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. Now here's a look at 4 state market prices. Moscow Zoo residents, a panda and a polar bear, enjoyed a hot summer day swimming in cool water on Monday. You see, Moscow is experiencing a heat wave with temps hitting around 88 degrees Fahrenheit. So the bears naturally decided to go for a dip. But bad news for the bears, the temps are forecasted to break previous records in Moscow just a little later this week.
Now, am I correct in saying, Mr. Dodge, you did refer to that as a pool bar for the bears?
A pool bar for the bears?
I thought, yeah. Is that what you said?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Well, I was going to chime in with it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah?
I don't know the time differential between here and Moscow. I'm not going to lie to you. Well, I tell you what, if you can find a pool, I'd go ahead and do it, not only for this afternoon, but see if your buddies won't let you come over and swim tomorrow, because it is going to be hot, humid, and feel about like 96 as we're going to ride 90s all the way into the weekend.
Now Dowquick joins us with what's coming up at 5.
Yeah, after a year and a half of the pandemic, health officials say they still see COVID tests being administered incorrectly. And if you do that with a home test, well, it could cause some serious problems. We're going to hear the best way to test yourself for the virus. Plus, Carthage school staff discussed the CDC new guidelines for masks in school buildings and how it's going to affect the upcoming school year. And Crawford County health officials provide updates to the current vaccination status after a surge of COVID-19 cases. It's all coming up today at KOAM News at 5.
And thank you for joining us for KOAM News at Noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.